My favorite science paper this week is about TikTok. Now, TikTok is a Chinese social media app, and a lot of people worry that the Chinese government might use TikTok to filter people's perceptions of China. For example, to make people in other countries like America less critical of China's human rights record. Well, guess what? A new study shows that Americans who use TikTok tend to be less critical of China's human rights record. The study also shows evidence of the algorithms in TikTok that are manipulating the way people see China. There's a link to this paper in the description. I think this is super important, and I'm really excited to talk about it. So the study has three parts. The first two are all about measuring the pro-China bias of the TikTok algorithms and comparing it to other social media apps. But the last part is measuring whether the algorithms work on Americans, and they do. So here's what some of the data look like. When you search on Instagram for things like Tibet or Tiananmen Square or Uyghur, those are all words that relate to severe human rights abuses by the Chinese government. They are things that are censored in China. If you search for those on Instagram, you're going to get some stuff that's very anti-China, very negative about the Chinese government. That's what you're seeing here is a graph of how much of that shows up. You're also going to get some stuff that's pro-Chinese government, and you're going to get some stuff that's neutral with respect to the Chinese government. And then, of course, you're also going to get stuff that's complete non sequiturs. You're going to get cat videos that have nothing to do with it. But nonetheless, when you search Instagram, you do get a significant chunk that's negative about the Chinese government. But when you make that same search on TikTok, you get something different. You get way less anti-China content. The anti-China stuff seems to be suppressed on TikTok to the order of about a fifth of what you'd see on Instagram. So in other words, 80% of it is removed, leaving just a fifth behind. So obviously that stuff's suppressed. Now, let me show you a graph of the pro-China content that you get when you search for those things. So if you search Instagram for Tibet, Tiananmen Square, Uyghur, you get some videos that are pro-China. Not as many as the negative videos, but you do get some. But when you do that same search on TikTok, here's how much you see that's pro-China on that platform. Way more. The amplification of pro-China viewpoints here is like 10% for the Tibet content. It's about 63% for the Tiananmen Square content, and it is a 500% boost for positive content about the Chinese government when you search for the Uyghur people. Now, all of this would be fine if it had no effect on the way people perceive China, but it does have an effect. The researchers polled 1,200 Americans and asked them, how much do you use TikTok? And how do you feel about China's human rights record? And you can see from this graph, which I've taken right from the paper, that the more time people spend on TikTok, the higher their human rights rating for China, with people who spend 3 hours or more rating the government almost twice as favorably as people who don't use TikTok. So obviously TikTok is a problem, but this is much bigger than just TikTok in China, because all of the social media apps have algorithms, and all of them have the power to change public opinion. ByteDance is in China, so it sucks up to the Chinese government. YouTube and Instagram and what's left of Twitter, those are American companies, and the owners of those companies are very clearly sucking up to that government. So what happens if there's a dispute? Like, let's say the US government starts talking about making Canada into a 51st state. Well, Canadians are going to have their views on that issue shifted by what they see on social media. And there's no law preventing Instagram or YouTube from tipping the scales on that conversation. So next time you see a poll that shows that young Canadians are open to their country becoming part of the US, think about where those young Canadians are getting their information from and ask yourself if it just might be possible that algorithms are having something to do with the way they're thinking on it. I know, it's heavy this week, but it's important. And science shines a light on all of it. If you like science, you should sign up for my newsletter. It's called The Bat Signal. Just go to followthebatsignal.com.